got the rain we needed, and then we got a lot more. Flooding from city streets up to northern Colorado. Our state's shortage of special education teachers is coming right at a time when students need them to finally return to a regular school year. Spending taxpayer dollars on political campaigns, Denver's trying it now in the name of fairness. So this is the week where we start to figure out how to divvy up Colorado River water. This state is passing the tough decisions downstream. And a plan to have a solar farm coexist with a farm. You think sheep will mind the shade from solar panels? We're about to find out. Next.
Sweet rain, we said foolishly before it poured and caused flooding on the south side of town. It was just too much too fast. It turned parking lots in Greenwood Village into kayak terrain. Police down in Lone Tree as well as out in Aurora are warning about street flooding. It's the standard, turn around, don't drown stuff. It was trash day, though, at Derek's place in southeast Aurora, and that is why you write the house number on the bin so that you can return them upstream tomorrow. Quite the drenching that we got. Confluence Park near Rangeview High School in Aurora got almost 2.5 inches of rain, including ½ an inch in 5 minutes. Up in Larimer County, emergency managers were warning people in Glen Haven and Drake that they needed to get to higher ground because there were some streams overflowing. Highway 34 was closed for about 2 hours because of flooding along the Pooter. It's back open now. As kids head back to class this month, school districts are scrambling to find enough special education teachers. That field has been understaffed for years. And now, coming out of the pandemic, kids have more needs. And the professionals who work with them are getting burned out. Here's Steve Steger.
We are working day by day in order to fill vacancies that we have.
That is quite a task for Jeffco's Executive Director of Special Education, Liza Meyer. The district says when it comes to learning specialists, like special education teachers, 7% of the district's available jobs in those fields remain open.
That number fluctuates depending on the needs across our building almost every day.
Matt Polero is the district's Chief Student Success Officer.
We're no different than any other district nearby.
They're actually doing better than the statewide average. The latest numbers from the Colorado Department of Education are for the 2021-22 school year. And last year, 17% of open special service provider positions remained unfilled throughout the entire school year. Special service providers include special ed teachers, specialists, and paraprofessionals.
Pre-pandemic, special education was already kind of a hard-to-fill position. We've seen the pandemic exacerbate that.
Both Polero and Myers say the pandemic was a double-edged sword, creating more student needs.
What we saw in some cases are needs related to social emotional development as well as some learning loss that needs to be addressed.
Needs which created burnout for the teachers working to address them.
They are working with a lot of students that have more intensive needs, even students that they knew before the pandemic and students they know after, and working to meet needs that have changed.
Jeffco schools and all districts we talked to today say they are making adjustments to staffing to make sure there are enough resources for the kids who need it the most.
Where we can, we're using community partners, we're working with our community advocacy groups, we're partnering with neighboring districts to see what ideas they've come up with that have been successful.
As for solutions to the problem long term, Matt Polero with Jeffco says that higher education programs that train teachers need to focus on better recruitment for special education. And he also says special education needs more funding because a lot of people who end up with a degree in this, they might go to a different state where they can get paid more. They might go into the private sector where they can make a whole lot more than they might make in a school.
I mean, you have special education teachers in schools who are doing it for the love of these students, and they know the difference that they can make. But at some point, you just can't overcome the obstacles we're putting in front of people.
The rubber's got to meet the road at some point because you're never going to make more what you would in the private sector in a school.
Yeah.
You really kind of have to do it for the love of what you're doing and because you love being in that environment. But at some point, something's got to give.
Yeah. Steve, thank you. Denver's business interests now have their candidate in the race for mayor. Kelly Brough is the most prominent name to join the race so far. It's going to be a wide open contest to replace Mayor Michael Hancock, who's term limited. Brough ran the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce for years. She left that job last year. At the time, she told our Marshall Zellinger she was not running for office. She went on to work at MSU Denver and resigned that post a month ago to run for mayor. There are 8 other candidates, all long shots, who have also filed paperwork for the 2023 mayor's race. Taxpayer money is being spent to help candidates in Denver run for office. Voters approved this idea in 2018, and today the first deposits were made. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger looks at this new way to finance campaigns.
Almost 36 candidates have declared their intention to run for office in Denver and hope to use taxpayer dollars to fund their campaigns. 15 of them have already qualified for money from the Fair Elections Fund.
It feels like a while ago now, but in 2018, voters did vote for this.
Lucille Winagema is with the Denver Clerk and Recorder's Office, which administers the $8 million fund from the same pot of money that pays for roads, police, and parks. Denver voters approved this public financing of elections with 70% of the vote 4 years ago. And today, nearly $1 million total was deposited between 15 candidate accounts.
It is a possibility for the fund to run out, but it's not probable right now.
Candidates are eligible for contribution matches. For every $5 someone in Denver gives the candidate, the city gives them 9 times as much, an additional $45. That match works for donations up to $50, when the city will give the candidate an additional $450. Here's how candidates qualify for that public money match. They have to certify that they want to participate in the Fair Elections Fund. Clerk and Recorder Paul Lopez did so on January 1st, 2020. Councilwoman Amanda Sandoval did it last week. That date represents when the match can begin. But first, they need to receive a minimum number of contributions from Denver residents. 250 contributions for mayoral candidates, 100 for council, auditor, judge, or clerk and recorder. Once that threshold is met, they get the 9 times match.
That $8 million I could use right out here to repave Dartmouth Avenue, right? I could use it to hire a few more police officers.
Before voters approved this in 2018, Councilman Kevin Flynn told me he was against the idea. Today, he received almost $90,000 from the fund he did not agree with. Flynn, who was recovering from COVID-19, told me on the phone, "It's not a contradiction. I didn't think it was a good idea, but it passed, and that's the system to use. Why would I not?" By taking public money, candidates limit how much they can get overall from individuals and committees. Candidates who do not take public money can receive twice as much from individuals and committees. Flynn, for example, tells me his $90,000 in public match today is more than his first 2 campaign accounts combined, though he didn't have an opponent 4 years ago.
So you have individual candidates and campaigns making a judgment on what's the best path for each of them.
Right. You could solicit smaller donations from more people and get more public money, or reach out to people with deeper pockets and you can get twice as much from them and not worry about the public money.
Interesting, though, that voters said, yeah, let's give this a try. And you're keeping an eye on it for us. Thank you, Marshall. Tomorrow, the public's finally going to get a chance to see what Denver police officers saw at the moment that they shot at a man with a gun in Lodo and 6 bystanders ended up hurt. Denver's Department of Public Safety says tomorrow is when they will share the body camera video of that shooting a month after it happened. At this point, police have only shared some still images from officers' body cameras. Denver police won't come out and say that their officers shot bystanders, but they have said that nobody else fired around that crowd that night. They say a man named Jordan Waddy pointed a gun at an officer, and then 3 officers fired 7 shots. 7 people ended up hurt, including Waddy. Notes have been pouring in over the weekend from Next viewers who have been helped by the nonprofit 3 Hopeful Hearts, the organization that you all boosted with $22,000 in Word of Thanks microgiving. They're bereaved parents who comfort and counsel other parents in Colorado who lose a child. Cam wrote in to say 3 Hopeful Hearts is a wonderful organization. It's been supporting me and my family with the loss of my child for the last 10 years. Cindy wrote to us, I can't put into words how much they have helped our family. We are eternally grateful. 3 Hopeful Hearts is there for families when they experience the unthinkable. Seeing your generosity over the last few days has reminded those families in a whole new way that they are not alone in their grief. Thank you for that. Through 114 weekly campaigns now, you have raised $9.3 million for wonderful nonprofits across our state. The next campaign on Wednesday is a chance to take a community's small but mighty effort, and we're going to supercharge it to help a whole lot more people.
This is a critical week for the future of the Colorado River. This state and others nearby are not volunteering to make the massive cuts that will be needed.
Well, we're in a true emergency, my heavens.
They already paid to fix bad sidewalks. A new ballot measure would have them pay again to pay for their neighbors. The energy world is embracing multitasking fields that generate power and dinner. Was that rude to say right in front of them? That's next.
A moment ago, talked about flood risk, shutting down Highway 34. I made a reference to the Poudre River. Of course, you know that's not right. It's the Big Thompson. apologize for that, and thanks to the folks who caught it. Debbie, Tom, Shailene, Jim, Ron, and Rachel. There are probably more. They just wrote in first. Critical week this week for the future of the Colorado River and the water that we send to our western neighbors. Tomorrow, the states that pull water from the Colorado are supposed to share their plans for making unprecedented cuts. The West's two most important reservoirs, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, are both at record lows. Back in June, the Bureau of Reclamation told Colorado and the 6 other states involved here to figure out how to use 15% less water next year, or the feds will impose their own plan. Tomorrow's the deadline, and it doesn't seem like the states know what's up. Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and New Mexico said last month that they don't have many options to cut, and it should be on Arizona, Nevada, and California to figure things out.
Right now, everyone looks at the other guy and says, we have a problem and you need to cut. Yes, we have a problem, you need to cut. What we need to get to is a point where everybody says, we have a problem and I need to cut, and I'm going to work harder. It's almost as if we're on a war footing.
That's Jack Schmidt, who studies the Colorado River and the fight over its water. Jack told us the cuts that we're talking about now have been decades in the making. Since 2000, we've been using more water than the river supplies, so we've been pulling from reservoirs to make up the difference.
We never rebuilt the supply. Had we known what lay ahead, we should have, in hindsight, reduced consumptive water use in the late 2000s to begin to rebuild reservoir supply, but we didn't.
So here we are now. Schmidt says the dramatic 15% cuts called for by the feds would allow us to work our way out of the current crisis and slowly refill those reservoirs. The Bureau of Reclamation is supposed to share more details about how it thinks we can accomplish those cuts tomorrow.
Well, we sure had a busy weather day out there, and it's not quite done yet. We have a live look over downtown Denver, where central portions of Denver didn't see too much rain. Maybe some rainfall fell, but where we saw busier activity was further south and southwest, even into Aurora, as we went through this afternoon and evening. Right now, we're at 66 degrees in Denver. Light winds coming down from the north at 8 miles per hour. So we continue to have these scattered showers and storms all across the state. A couple of hot spots, though, one through Glenwood Canyon area, where we do still have flash flood warnings in effect until around 7:15, and you can see this through Marble, Aspen, Carbondale, Glenwood Springs. We're going to continue to watch for that heavy rainfall to continue to move through that area. And then further south of Denver, South Metro and into Aurora, this is where we do still have a couple flash flood warnings in effect as well until later this hour. So we're going to continue to monitor that. But where I'm really keeping my eyes as we take a further look into the eastern plains is where this longer line of showers and storms is really coming together as it makes its way further eastward. So this is where we're going to continue to watch for locally heavy downpours, strong winds, and even hail. Already in South Metro and Aurora areas, we've seen 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. We've seen 1-inch hail. We've seen those winds up to around 50 to 60 miles per hour. So this is going to continue to intensify as we go through the rest of the evening. We're going to continue to watch for that. Another round of rain in southern portions of the metro tomorrow.
Our next question tonight is about Denver sidewalks. A ballot measure in November will ask voters to make sidewalks a shared responsibility rather than putting repairs on each home or business owner. Linda Stewart wrote in to say she was already forced to pay for her sidewalk repairs under a previous city program. She wanted to know, will she and others get refunds?
That is a fair question, Linda. The bottom line, no. No refund for you or others. The city of Denver does not have any kind of a plan to make things more equitable for the people already forced to pay for sidewalk repairs under the old program. So for background, the city started a program in 2018 to repair Denver sidewalks where they assessed that they needed to be fixed. Business owners or homeowners like Linda were required to pay for those repairs if ordered. Well, now voters in Denver are going to decide in November whether to change how to pay for sidewalks. This proposal would have all home and business owners kind of pay into one pot an annual fee to fix sidewalks citywide. The city told us the people who paid for repairs under the previous program will not get any kind of refund or credit. Denver Streets Partnership, the group behind the new proposal, says trying to figure out who should get their money back would be too tough.
So there'd be a lot of logistical challenges to figuring out, how would we reimburse people for that expense? How far back do we go? 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Is everybody eligible for that reimbursement?
Denver Streets Partnership pointed out that at some point, the people who just fixed their sidewalks will need to fix them again. And if this fee is approved, then it would be around to pay for those next repairs. If you're ever left with a lingering question after one of our reports, please just ask us. We'll follow up here. Email or video or audio recording of your question, if you would, to next@9news.com.
If at first you don't succeed, try adding sheep. A solar project trying to win approval in a rural area decides to put some animals in its plan. Also, we are going to go to the bathroom together. I promise it will not be weird. Strange, but not weird. That's next.
Commissioners in Delta County said no to a big new solar project. So the company behind the idea is coming back with a new proposal: solar panels and sheep. Denver-based Guzman Energy wants to build a 475-acre solar project outside the town of Delta. Back in March, county commissioners said no because they didn't want to lose the agricultural land. So the company has a new plan: solar panels and 1,000 sheep grazing in the fields around them. It's a strategy that is actually somewhat common as there are more and more solar projects built around the U.S.
Agricultural lands are already flat. They're already worked. They already have access to roads. They already have access to transmission lines. In a lot of different ways, they make sense as a perfect spot for developing solar projects.
Researchers at the National Renewable Energy Lab, NREL in Golden, have been following these sorts of projects for years. They say there are projects that have crops growing in the gaps between the panels. Others use the land for beehives, and there's plenty of that sheep grazing too. Jordan Macknick at NREL says the shade from the solar panels can actually keep the fields cooler. That's helpful for plants. And the sheep grazing operations can save the solar companies maintenance costs because there's no need to go out there and run the lawnmower if the hungry sheep will do the work for you. Most people presumably come to the Denver Art Museum for the art, but do not miss out on the bathrooms. That has got to scare the bejesus out of people. If you time it right, apparently the sinks will sing in unison. The Singing Sinks art installation by Jim Green was originally on the first floor of the North Building at the Denver Art Museum. They just moved it to the second floor of the Martin Building as part of renovations. This musical bathroom was noteworthy enough that it made the American Alliance of Museums list of best museum bathrooms. No interest in the rest of that list. None. The guy who designed the sinks also created the laughing escalator at the Colorado Convention Center. If you're not familiar, it is precisely what it sounds like. It's a sign for you tonight. The pedestrians are sick of drivers ignoring the signs. That and your feedback next. It's a sign of drivers and neighbors fed up with confusion. It reads simply, "Wrong way, stupid." That is too blunt to be a CDOT sign, but I bet you it gets people's attention. Dorian shared this picture from his walk to work on Calumet, just north of the I-25 north on-ramp. Calumet is one way there. Dorian says he sees cars going the wrong way at least once a week, and looks like somebody else who's a bit of an artist saw the same. If you see a sign with an unusually blunt message, share it. Email next@9news.com. Use the hashtag #HeyNext. Tony writes in to say, "I won't lie, I'm one of those special education teachers transitioning out this year. I have a second interview with a state agency coming up. Still very passionate about education. Just need a break." And Christy wrote in as the proud wife of a special education teacher who does it for the love of the kids. We're in a rural community. Our school struggles to staff the positions. Thank you for the work that you do. See you next time.